There's a moment many senior women leaders recognize quietly. Leadership starts to feel heavier than it used to. Not more complex, not more demanding on paper, just heavier. Meetings take more energy to prepare for. Decisions linger longer than they should. And the same responsibilities now require an internal bracing that never used to be necessary. Nothing is obviously wrong, but something has shifted. And most women don't talk about this moment because it doesn't come with a clear explanation. Here's the distinction most people miss. When leadership starts requiring more effort, it's rarely because you're burned out or losing motivation. It's usually because you're carrying a load that doesn't belong to you anymore. Effort in this context isn't something to overcome, it's information. Leadership has always required energy. That part isn't new. What changes is the ratio. Ordinary leadership tasks begin to require disproportionate effort, not because the work is harder, but because more unseen work is required just to operate. You're not managing outcomes anymore. You're managing tone, timing, perception, internal negotiations. Decisions are no longer just strategic. They're filtered through anticipation and self monitoring. That's not a motivation problem, that's a load problem. And effort at this level isn't a flaw, it's feedback. For most women, this signal arrives quietly. Nothing happened, no crisis, no performance issue. Your reputation is intact. Your results are strong. On paper, everything works, which is exactly why this sensation gets turned inward. Instead of questioning the environment, you question yourself. Am I less resilient? Am I losing my edge? Why does this feel harder than it should? But systems can function perfectly while quietly demanding constant internal compensation. And high capacity women are especially good at absorbing that without naming it. Most senior women were rewarded early for carrying more. You adapted, you absorbed ambiguity, you regulated complexity without complaint. Effort became a form of competence. So when leadership starts to feel effortful in a new way, the reflex is familiar. Work harder, self regulate better, push through. But this kind of effort isn't about discipline. It's about misalignment between responsibility and system design. You compensate for unclear authority, for emotional labor that is expected but unnamed, for environments that privilege speed over sense making. Each adjustment seems reasonable in isolation. Together, they create a cognitive load that never turns off. This is where many women experience decision fatigue without recognizing it as such. Not the dramatic version, the quiet, the constant calibration, the internal debate before every response. The question of when to assert and when to absorb. The fatigue doesn't come from making too many decisions. It comes from making them inside systems that require continuous self translation. The effort accumulates long before the collapse. I've spent decades inside senior leadership environments where women were praised for endurance and penalized for clarity. What I've learned, personally and professionally, is this: the women who struggle most aren't the weak ones. They're the ones carrying misalignment longer than they should. At this stage, the experience is usually labeled burnout or personal threshold you're supposed to rebuild. But boundaries don't fix structural misalignment, they only help you survive it longer. Resilience doesn't resolve environments that quietly tax your discernment and authority. And mindset work doesn't address systems that reward endurance while penalizing truth. When effort becomes constant, it's no longer a virtue, it's feedback. The moment leadership starts requiring too much effort isn't a call to fix yourself. It's an invitation to notice what the effort is protecting you from seeing. Not every system deserves your adaptability. Not every form of success deserves your continued participation. And not every increase in effort is a badge of honor. Sometimes it's simple clarity arriving quietly. If you're here, you're not behind. You're standing at a threshold. So I'll leave you with this question: where are you already leading differently, but still waiting for permission to trust it? If this conversation resonated, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It helps this message reach other professionals who are quietly carrying the same weight. And if you want more of these real conversations, the ones about leadership, alignment, identity, and the inner game of your career, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because we're not circling the problem here, we're learning how to name it.